All right, fishing cabin fever is really starting to set in for me. I haven't gone fishing in about 3 months at this point. So I put out a poll maybe a week ago, asking you guys for some suggestions on how you deal with, not being able to fish during the brutal Canadian winters. And this one's extra brutal. It's been very cold. There's been a lot of snow. It seems like it's snowing every couple days, so there's really no end in sight. Now, thankfully for me, I'm gonna have a couple breaks from it this year, but it's been quite some time that I've been in it. Now, taking your guys' suggestions, we're gonna do some of the stuff that you have suggested, and then I'm gonna show you guys some things that I like to do to kind of keep myself busy through the colder months. Ice fishing just isn't for me. I love, being in warm weather and fishing. I'm more of a fair weather fisherman than I probably led on to believe, and ice fishing is definitely not in my arsenal. So ice fishing is completely off the table. For you guys that like to ice fish, all the power to you. For me, I'm gonna drive down right now to the boat shop. I'm gonna start doing a little bit of an inventory on some of the stuff that I might be running light on. I'm gonna have a look at my rods, see how my lines are holding up, make sure I have, all of the stuff that I'm gonna need for, the day that the snow breaks, I'm able to just jump in my boat, fire off, and I can go do a whole fishing day, not have to worry about everything. All my lines are gonna be retied. I'm gonna have all the tackle, all the hooks, nothing's gonna be missing from any of my boxes. So that's what we're gonna do today, and just sort of walk through the process of being prepared for, hopefully we get a pretty good early season this year, but prepared for the regular fishing season, which is upcoming. So let's go down to the boat shop, which is where we're driving to right now, and get things rolling. Okay, now we've gotten down to the boat shop. Two things I like to always have with me when I'm gonna start going through a lot of tackle. Number one is a coffee or a tea. The other is a notebook or some way for me to record what I'm gonna need. So this year, I know last season we did a lot of finesse fishing, so I have my finesse box out from the other day. I'm really gonna go through it, sort of write down the things that I'm already short on, and then hopefully be able to replenish it from some of the stuff we have in the store. Okay, so this is one of my boxes. This is my finesse BKK box. This is where I keep all of my stuff like, my Nico hacks, my O-rings, some of my wacky hooks are in here. I have my drop shot hooks, and I know a lot of these are empty because last season I kept having to use other hooks that maybe I normally wouldn't, which is nice sometimes because you can find better hooks, but I'd like to replenish based on what I normally use. And then from there, if I want to add some stuff in, I can do that. So I'm going to make a list of what I have, what I'm missing, and then carry that over when we go back up to the store. I start to get a little bit of a shopping list that I can prepare so I'm ready to go. Now, sometimes I like to do this just with my phone. I'll just make a note in my phone, but a lot of the times it's nicer for me to just have a piece of paper out. Analog is a little bit more easy for me to see everything that I have written down, and then if I want, I can convert it over to the phone, or I'll just bring a piece of paper into the store with me. Okay, so I've gone through this one. I'm gonna quickly run through my more power style of hooks, so my EWGs, my flipping hooks, maybe get some of my flipping weights, all that type of stuff. I'm gonna do my whole other box, we'll get all that written down, and then I'll have a complete list of all the hooks I needed to restock. Now, this wasn't too bad. I was only missing 6 or 7 things, which is great, but I have a feeling that my flipping box is just a little bit more depleted. So I'm gonna go through that really quickly, and then we will move on to the next thing. A lot of times I won't go out and get everything all at once. I'll sort of, do one style of fishing at a time, or if I know that my first trip, likely this year will be down in the States, and I know sort of the style of fishing that I'll go with, I'll make sure that I definitely have that. Now, since I don't fish in the States a whole lot, I'll likely bring as much of this stuff that I can get my hands on, but if it was a normal year, I would mostly focus on my early season stuff and then try to add in maybe, a rod or something like that that I was missing from my arsenal last year. I'm pretty lucky this year. I think I have most of the rods, but we're still gonna do a complete rod inventory. And this is something I like to do several times throughout the year to make sure that I have, rods break. That's just something that we have to deal with. Reels start to get a little bit old and dated, and I like to kind of keep an eye on everything that I have. Make sure that none of my guides are bent out or broken. And if they are, I want to make sure that I can get that rod sent in right away for either repair or replacement. And then with new techniques that are always sort of circulating in and out of bass fishing, there's always a need for some sort of rod, especially, you know, with the whole jig head minnow sort of mid-strolling. I've played with a lot of rods this year. Now I've sort of honed in on the 2-3 rods that I really like to use for this technique, thankfully, and I have them. But maybe I'm looking to adjust some of the line diameters, some of my bulk spools. I might need to start picking up some of the lighter, you know, big size spools from Sunline, or some of the X-Braid. I was really enjoying this new X-Braid X8 this year, so I went and picked up a big 30-pound bulk spool. This is going to be going on a lot of my bait casting reels, which bait casting reels, for the most part, I like to redo at least once a year. If it's with fluorocarbon, multiple times per year. And then for my spinning, you know, I have a handful of rods that really get abused, and those ones normally will get changed out 1 to 2 times a year. But some of my rods, they don't get a lot of action these days. Like last year, I didn't really throw a whole lot of Ned rig. So my Ned rig rod, it's probably pretty good. I'm just gonna go make sure that I take off maybe that first little layer, give it a little refresh, and then maybe tie on some new leader line onto it so that I'm ready to go. I like to start with spinning. It's slightly less complicated for me. I like one reel. That's, at the end of the day, I've kind of honed in on the right one for me. With casting, I'm a little bit more all over the place. I like different brands, I like different rods, I like different reels, I like different lines. For the most part, which you guys will notice that all of my line is the same, all of my reels are the same. The things that really change are gonna be, you know, line diameters and stuff like that. Now, I can already tell that a lot of these rods are gonna need to get the line replaced, and this is the time where I'm going to make notes of that. So, you know, I've got a dozen, 15 or so rods here. I would say that 6 to 8 of these are going to need brand new line that, you know, like this one here is completely faded. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is what it's looking like right now. So this one got a lot of use and abuse. There's also one rod in here that, you know, over the last couple of years, I've been really thinking about retiring. This is a very old Loomis rod that I've had for a long time that I haven't been able to get a hold of. But things, you know, I've had this rod for probably 12 years-ish, and things are just starting to delaminate. So this might be the year where I might have to retire this rod, and then I'll have to make a note that I'll want to replace this with something similar. And this is an 822 DSR, the original one from Loomis. This is one of the greatest drop shot rods of all time. Still in great shape, although the delamination on the blank is just starting to take over. And that's what happens with time. You know, if you ultra take care of your stuff, it might last a little bit longer. I like to use and abuse my stuff. Now, I always take care of it. These reels will go in every, you know, year, 2 years. Everything will get maintenanced, which is great. And that's another thing that you should consider doing in the off season is this is, you know, probably the only time that you're not going to have a use for any of your reels. So if you have any with problems, any that need just a tune-up, maybe it's been, you know, 4 or 5 years since you've sent it in or had any work done onto it, it's a great time to mail it into Shimano, Daiwa, and they can get the maintenance done on it, get everything greased up, change everything out, get your washers changed, and have everything perfectly dialed in, ready for you to go on the next season. Now, last year in my arsenal, just in my spinning, I had 3 rods go down. So 2 which were completely my fault, which I'm gonna have to replace, and 1 was a manufacturer defect, which I'm waiting to come back. Now, I know that the manufacturer defect I should have back here pretty much any time at this point, but the 2, I'm gonna have to consider what brand or model I'm gonna replace. One of the rods, very happy with. I'll likely just replace it with the same one. The other one, I'm probably gonna do a little bit more experimenting. It's a different technique that I wasn't so familiar with when I first bought the rod. And that's one of those things that, you know, with rods, as much as I can tell you what works for me and what might, you know, everybody else might tell you what works for them, sometimes the right rod is the one that, you know, doesn't make sense for everybody else, but makes a lot of sense for you. I have a couple rods in here that I use in a completely different way than everybody else uses them. I mean, this rod here was, I mean, this is a baby plug-in. This was recommended to me by someone to use for a different technique than how I use it, and I didn't really enjoy it for that, but I love that rod for throwing other things. So when you're buying a rod, and this is tough to say with the new sort of way things go with shopping online, I recommend trying to, think about how you like to fish first and foremost, rather than what someone is suggesting you. And then you can also take people's suggestions and sort of put everything together and sort of figure out where you are. Like I said, techniques are constantly evolving and growing, and hooks are changing, and weights and different needs, and where you fish is probably a lot different from where I fish. So again, with rods, take it with a grain of salt and really try to lock in on what makes the most sense for you. Now, in my graveyard of immediate use rods, I have a lot of rods with reels on them. That's based on the way that I was fishing towards the end of the year. I don't have a million reels. I have a lot of reels, but I don't have enough reels to really work out every single rod that I have. So what ends up happening is towards the end of the year, my style of fishing changes, and then I know sort of where my fish are going to be, hopefully at the start of the year. So this is where I'll start to transition a lot of the reels back to the original rods that I had, being used at the start of the year. And then again, the same process will just end up taking over again. So what I'm going to do now is switch up a bunch of my reels back onto some of these guys for, different techniques. And we got a good mix in here. We have Loomis rods, we have Megabass rods, we have, Zillions, X-Prides. One of the most exciting times for me, because I know that, a lot of these rods I'm only going to get to use for maybe 2 months, and then I'm going to put them away again and switch back to a completely different style of fishing. So I'm going to rig these ones up and just keep on going with my sort of inventory / restock. And this is where I'll make notes of a lot of these rods, like this one has been completely blown up for who knows how long. This is going to have to be completely taken apart and completely re-spooled with brand new fluorocarbon. And this is a rod that I actually might end up not using for this, because if I do recall correctly, when I was using it, I wasn't a huge fan of it. So this rod is probably going to go into the not retirement pile, but the wait till I find a specific use for it. And the reel is going to get completely new line and go back onto a rod that's going to be more useful for me. All right, so I've stripped a couple of these down that were, kind of in disrepair. Feeling them out, everything feels actually pretty good this year. Everything seems, pretty tuned in. I've already strung up my stees, which is gonna find a new home here very soon. I am currently out of the line that I want to use for my Exences, so I've taken off the ones that I've deemed needing brand new line, and I'm gonna leave these on the deck of the boat when I go to get my stuff. I know those are gonna be the first ones I need to take care of. I'm gonna throw this bad boy out here and then carry on. Okay, now that I've spooled up all of my casting and stuff like that, I'm basically going to allocate what's going to go into the boat immediately. Now, I'm going to keep some out because I know that we're going to go fish with some friends where I'm not going to be bringing my own boat, but we're going to be going in with their boat. And something else I like to do is prepare my travel bag. So for you bank guys, for you guys that do a lot of co-angling or anything like that, this still applies to you. So I'm gonna go over to the other side. I actually use this Ryugi bag. I've been using it forever. I like to make sure that my to-go bag is ready to go. So this is my bag that I usually have in my truck with me, whether I'm going in someone else's boat, we're going bank fishing. This is where I keep most of my stuff. So I'll have extra line in here, all my lures, hard baits, soft baits. And right now, I just double checked it. I have everything completely empty. So this Ryugi bag holds 6 of these smaller Ryugi bags. They're all 100% empty, ready for me to fill them up as I go through my stuff. Now, I'll make a couple with my high volume stuff. I make sure that I have a good amount of them. And then I have a couple of these that are packed situationally. I have some that have line and then little accessories, stuff like that. So this will also be needed to set up and have me completely ready for next year. And this is one thing that I really love about this bag is the modularity. So I actually have about 10 of these Ryugi bags, and through the year, I'll start to fill them up with different things so I can just go hot swap them out. We use these for a lot of our camera stuff as well. It's a great bag to have. Probably my favorite, overall to go take with me bag. I do have sling bags and stuff like that for when we're, you know, getting into those a little bit harder to reach bank fishing areas, but for the most part, I like to bring this guy with me. So over here, this is kind of what I like to call the lure graveyard. So this is where like a lot of the half packs that I use through the year, a lot of the hard baits with sort of bent hooks or broken off stuff. And this is sort of the time where I either like to put it back in where it's supposed to go. This is stuff that I've just thrown in cup holders as I cut off and never really, you know, gave it back to its proper place. But this is the time of year where I get all my hooks back on my hard baits, because let's be real, these things aren't cheap. There's no point of throwing it out just over a couple, you know, bent hooks or broken hooks, which happens all the time. So this is where I kind of get them all back to 100% working order. I'll make a list of sort of which hooks I'm going to put back on them if I don't already have them. Most of the time, I actually have a pretty good treble collection, so I can swap these out pretty good. But during the season, I don't really want to spend time doing that. So a lot of times I'll just swap out, grab another one, tie it on, and start going. Another thing that I really like to do is I grab my split ring pliers every so often, and the baits that I know that I don't like the hooks on or I don't like the split rings on, this is where for my high volume stuff, I'll just take my split ring pliers, swap everything out. So again, it's all ready to go, pack it into its respective little container and send that off. Okay, so this is probably the last and most labor intensive part of my sort of cabin fever. So this is what I spend the most time doing, is organizing and replenishing tackle. Now let's just pull something out, for instance. So I have my Spark Shad bag here. This is where I keep, you know, a lot of my 3-inch Spark Shads. This one's pretty full. So I was using this towards the end of the year and I had kept restocking it. This is one of my fish roller boxes. I'm missing 2 colors, so these colors were obviously key for me. The lucky thing with me is I know sort of the base colors that I like to use. I know that I have a good amount of them still on the wall, so I won't have to go to the store and buy anymore. I like to keep a healthy stock of sort of the key stuff. So this box needs to be replenished with a couple of them. Okashira box, so this is one that I know. This one needs a little bit of help with some of the non-prop heads, so this one's getting pretty low. And then I have 2 of these out, which I think I took out to replenish, or I made a special box for one event. See, this is why I do this. I need to find out why I have these 2 boxes missing. I probably haven't opened this box up in 2 months already. So I need to find those boxes, and I need to figure out if I need to replace the colors, if I took them out to put them in a different box, because that's something else that I'll do. So throughout the year, I will make boxes for certain lakes. Now, I obviously was on a Okashira bite at a certain lake, and I took a couple of these out and made a small box that I could just leave on the deck. That's one of the reasons why I use this system that I do. So yeah, I got to find those. And I'm just going to start making notes. So that's why I keep that sort of piece of paper with me on this notepad. I'll start making notes of everything. Now I'm going to take everything out first before I do that, and then just go through one by one. And then I'll replenish what I can from the wall, what I can't. I'll write it down, bring it to the store, make myself a little cart, take it, and then come back down. So this is my dice style sort of box. In this one obviously needs a lot of replenishment. We've been out of dice for a long time. We just got a big restock, which I took advantage of and already brought some down here. So this is my fish care kit. So I'll check stuff like that. Like this is, you know, the buzzer rocks. We go through a lot of these. So this one, you know, I might grab another pack of these guys. These are just the oxygen tabs. We have energy party, again, same thing. So I need to grab an energy party, I need to grab an oxygen tab, I'll make notes of all this stuff. All right, so I'm gonna start with the hard baits, start refilling. Like I said, I'm gonna change out a bunch of hooks, get those back into the box where they can be used, and then move over to the soft baits, hopefully be able to fill up as many of these as I can from the wall. Things that I don't, write a note, and then I'll be ready to go. Okay, so I filled this as much as I possibly can from what I had on the shelf. I think we did a pretty good job. I still have lots more to buy, but we cleared out, I mean, off the peg, probably 15 or so packs of Hasdongs. And this just keeps repeating. So all of my soft plastics, some of my key ones I like to keep in hard boxes like this, especially ones with more delicate tails. Now I probably could lay some of these in a little bit gentler to keep those tails nice and straight, but This is how I store it, and this is how I've stored them for a long time, and I haven't had a problem yet. So I know that I need to refill on Ghost Shad, which was out of stock for a very long time, which we did just get a restock on, and then also Shiokosho. So those two, I'm gonna go up to the store. They're on my list now. I know that I need to buy them, make sure I got a couple on the shelf, and have this thing completely full. I'm gonna throw these in the bin, and then move on to something else. We're pretty much, almost done working through restocking what I have here. And that's like the bulk of doing everything. Now, I also have these bins down here. So this bin is sort of my hodgepodge throughout the year of stuff that, either I've used a couple of them, for whatever reason, they've ended up in this bin. I never really know why. Most of the time, it's because they won't hang back up on the wall. Stuff like this that got ripped off. Like the Nico stuff, a lot of depths in here because again, they get ripped off. So what I will end up doing with these is I will have sort of I'll start to bulk everything together. Like I got 2 different packs of Nico Helgramites. These will just go into one pack because they need to stay together. They can't go in with anything else. Stuff like this. I'll see if I can like bring together packs of stuff so that I can, keep using it. Like there you go. There's another pack of the Nico Helgramites. So that I can keep using it and I can put it back in the boat and yeah, not be wasteful. There's no sense in throwing out packs with one stuff. You just condense them down. For boats, so something that I did immediately when I put this boat away is I changed my oil. I changed my lower unit oil. I like to do that every time that I put this thing away for any amount of time. I'll put some fuel stabilizer in here and make sure that I've completely, done what I can to prepare the boat for a little bit of a sleep. Another thing that I like to do is go around and tighten up all the nuts and bolts. So we will, this is stuff I've already done. I did it right away when the boat went away. I'll take off all the covers. I'll lock down all the bolts that are holding in, my graph mounts, my other graph mount, my trolling motor gets re-screwed down completely just to sort of refresh the boat. And when it's ready to go, I'm not worried about it. Little things that maybe I had made mental notes on, but lazily didn't get to it right away. All that stuff got taken care of right when I put the boat away. And that's something that I've become in the habit of, because if you leave your boat for too long with little minor things, they add up to a big thing. So again, first thing that happens when I put this thing in the garage for a long winter is take care of all of that stuff. And then I empty the boat out and I completely clean all of the boxes. These were put back in there because we were doing some other organizational stuff, but generally I'll leave this pretty empty until about 30 days before we start to go fishing. Now, another thing that you can do, you can travel. You can go down to the US, Texas, Florida, any of those, Southern California, you guys down there probably think that we make no sense living up here, which you wouldn't be wrong. I'm looking outside at mountains of snow. You guys are looking at beautiful sunny skies and going out fishing. So if you were lucky enough to be born in sort of that lower US state, you think I'm crazy. You're just going fishing. Those are some of the stuff that we like to do. Tackle organization is obviously the biggest one. Getting your rods and your line and everything ready for next year. It's sort of time consuming, and it puts you back in and around the stuff that that we like to play with. So I like playing with tackle. I like fishing gear. It's enjoyable to me to be able to come down here sort of midwinter and just immerse myself back into it. Now, Bassmaster is going to fire back up. MLF's going to fire back up. If you're a fan of any of that stuff, just hang out down here, maybe have a drink, watch it on your TV. You're good to go. Hopefully soon we'll be able to get back out fishing. Until then, try some of this stuff, get your gear organized, get your list together so we can be ready right when that ice is out and we can go catch some giant bass. Until then, I'll see you guys on the next one.